Hey now, welcome to 3x5 with Steve Bennett. I'm Steve Bennett. It's episode 11 of 3x5. We're motoring along here, getting closer and closer to football. Paula Bennett's here hanging out. She's got her doll. Yeah, let's see. There we go. Oh, what a nice. Look, she's even got her name on it, too. What a great doll, Paula. All right, 3x5 with Steve Bennett. 3 lists today for you, pop culture, wrestling, and sports is special. We have our first guest ever to appear on the show. We're going to do, well, besides Paula, yeah. We're going to have top 5 defensive plays in NFL history with the author of Wingmen, Adam Lazarus. And like Paula, he's here to hang out. All right, 3x5 with Steve Bennett. We got Paula Bennett here. Adam Lazarus is here. The book is on the screen. The Wingmen, the unlikely, unusual, unbreakable friendship between John Glenn and Ted Williams. Why don't you pitch the book real quick? Give us a minute on what it is. Comes out, what, the 22nd, I believe? Tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Comes out the day that this is goes up, so it'll be up on launch day. You can get it wherever books are available. Tell us a little bit about it.
It's a book about 2 American icons. One, most famous baseball players of all time, Ted Williams, who I imagine a lot of your listeners know, who served alongside John Glenn, the NASA pioneering astronaut and later U.S. Senator, who important figure in American history as well. They served together in the Korean War as 2 fighter pilots bombing North Korea in 1953, and they had a friendship that lasted for 50 years. And it's a book about their friendship, their military service, their 2 very different lives and how they panned out. And I think it's an interesting read for people, military history people, baseball history people, NASA history people, and anybody who's got a good buddy who they're not exactly the same like. It's a story like that.
Yeah, and if you want to know more about Wingmen and hear Adam and I talk about it a couple episodes ago on the Sportscasters, me and Adam did about an hour on it, and then in a couple weeks from now, when it's out, we're going to do a more specific hour on it where we get into the details. We kind of left it spoiler-free the first time, just doing general strokes and things like that, but it's available on Sportscasters Podcast, and Adam will be back to talk about it again. We've promoted with Adam, I think this is the 5th book, 4th at least.
At least, I think the 4th, but yeah.
4th, yeah. So we're excited anytime he's got a book out, and we do the best we can to get it out there, although he doesn't need our help this time around. This thing's been everywhere. I'm really excited about the buzz for it, and if you like his list, maybe that'll be enough to get you to buy one as well. We'll see if he gets a copy sold based on his defensive players list. All right, let's start with wrestling, and my producer Ryan said I have a great idea for you, and Adam's going to comment. Paul can comment on these too if she wants. Ryan said I have a great idea for you. What if is just burning the algorithm down to the ground? You got to do a what if. I said, all right, I'll do a what if. So I thought, what if Ricky Steamboat didn't go on paternity leave in 1987 and ruin his Intercontinental title run? Now, of course, the first thing, which I didn't put on the list, but the first thing is I wouldn't have had to tragically watch in Buffalo, New York, him lose the title, which is why I went with this one. One of the worst moments of my life, right in front of me at the Memorial Auditorium. Luckily, Paula and her baby weren't there. And I cried for 45 minutes, and only nachos and the Hulk foam finger calmed me down just basically for 5 minutes until someone spit green shit in Hulk's face, and I was crying again. So a traumatic day at the matches. So first of all, that wouldn't happen. But seriously, in terms of wrestling, what would have happened if Steamboat didn't bail on his Intercontinental title run after WrestleMania 3 for paternity leave? Let's start with number 5. First of all, Honky Tonk Man and the greatest Intercontinental title reign of all time would have never happened. He would have never got the belt. It was sort of an accident. He got it anyway. It was supposed to go to Butch Reed. Butch Reed wasn't there. Hulk Hogan suggested to Vince McMahon, what about Honky Tonk Man? And he gets the belt and holds it for a year till SummerSlam 88 when he loses to Warrior. That never happens. That's first of all. So Honky Tonk Man is basically nothing more than a jobber to the stars, a mid-card guy forever in the WWF. Never has this big year in 1987 through 1988. That's number 5. Number 4, Steamboat and Savage have the greatest 3-match series in WWF and maybe wrestling history, similar to the 3-match series that Steamboat will go on to have with Flair down south in 89. The first match, obviously, would be WrestleMania 3. Steamboat wins the belt. Then a Saturday night's main event, the whole episode is a Steamboat Savage match. Sort of similar to the way Hogan and Andre got an episode of the main event. Maybe a match comes on towards the end, but for the most part, a match centered around their second battle, which Macho wins, gets the belt back. And then finally at Survivor Series 87, the first ever Survivor Series, we have the first ever non-Survivor Series style match, which is Steamboat and Savage Part 3. And Steamboat wins, walks away with the title. They shake hands, and it propels both guys to bigger things, especially Macho Man, because number 3 is Steamboat and Savage shake hands after the third match. And then later that night at the Survivor Series, Savage is saves Hulk, and we start the Mega Powers angle that night, Survivor Series 87. Number 2, Steamboat eventually is screwed by Bobby Heenan at SummerSlam 88. He loses the belt to Rick Rude, and that's the end of his Intercontinental title reign. One of the most memorable in company history, in the same way Honky Tonk Man's was. And then finally, number 1, eventually, based on the momentum earned on this wonderful feud, Steamboat and Savage do have title reigns. I picture Mega Powers working out the same way it did, and then somewhere down the line, when Hulk is gone and they need a babyface run, Steamboat gets his reward for his role as the other part of one of the most epic feuds in wrestling history. So only if this guy didn't get forced by his wife into paternity leave, who then dumped the guy anyway a couple years down the road after ruining his career in the WWF, the poor guy. If he would have stayed, I think that we never hear from Honky Tonk Man in the same way. I think him and Savage have a 3-match epic feud rivaling Steamboat's feud with Flair in 89. Then I think that they shake hands after the third match, and Savage saves Hogan later that night at Survivor Series to start the Mega Powers angle. Then I think Steamboat is screwed by Heenan at 88, SummerSlam 88, to lose the belt to Rick Rude. And then I think they both end up with at least one WWF title reign because they've elevated themselves to that level in this epic feud. So that's my what if. What if poor Ricky Steamboat didn't get pressured into paternity leave back in 1987? I'm going to start something today. I'm going to do a top 5 sitcom series for every decade, 70s on. Here's the 2 criteria. To be in that particular decade, number 1, you need to debut there. And number 2, you have to have your prime there. So, for example, something like Seinfeld, which technically debuts in 89, its prime is in 90, so it wasn't considered here. Another show maybe that would fit into that is Married with Children or The Simpsons. Those debuted in the 80s, but their prime was in the 90s, so they'll be considered with the other 90 shows. So for the 80s shows, you had to debut here in this decade and have your prime there. And I think this will happen with every decade because there'll be shows that have a season 1 and, let's say the 70s one will have a season 1 in 78 or something, but, it's fastball is later, so it'll be considered later. So here we're not going to consider shows that's main run was in a different decade. So we'll focus on the 80s today and we'll count them down. And we'll start with a show that debuted September 22nd, 1982. It signed off May 14th, 1989, 176 episodes. And that's Family Ties. Started the career of Michael J. Fox. It's his 2 parents are these kind of old school hippies, these ultra liberals, and their son is this sort of conservative kid who gets into all these wacky situations as sitcoms also do, a show about family. It was so popular in the 80s that when the producers of Back to the Future initially came to offer the job to Michael J. Fox, Family Ties didn't even bring it to him. They said, no, he's too busy. And that's when Back to the Future cast another actor and, did were started to film the movie with him. It was no good, so they took finally a second run at Family Ties and Michael J. Fox. And Family Ties said he could do the movie, but Family Ties is first. So back then, Michael J. Fox worked practically 24 hours a day, sleeping in limos on the way back and forth, filming Back to the Future at night after working on Family Ties all day. So a legendary show for his career, a legendary sitcom in the 80s, and it's number 5 on our list today. Number 4, I'll admit, when I was this age, I guess it debuted March 25th, 1986. So I was 5 years old. And it ran August 6, 1993, 150 episodes. No show made me laugh at this age as much as Perfect Strangers did. This guy here, Belky Bartakamis, and his roommate, cousin Larry, he comes from who knows where.
Eastern Europe.
What's that?
It was Mipos.
Mipos, of course.
It was a made-up city. It was a made-up country.
Yes, the made-up country of Mipos, which I assume was in Eastern Europe somewhere. And he comes across on the boat. And these guys they have a wacky life. Like, they try to help the hot girls upstairs fix their toilet, but they're not plumbers. And the water's squirting everywhere. And like, as a 7 or 8-year-old, whatever season that was in, I just thought this was the funniest shit. I mean, nothing made me laugh harder than Perfect Strangers as a kid. So that's good enough for it to be number 4 on the list. Number 3 debuted September 14th, 1985, 180 episodes, finished May 9th, 1992, and it's The Golden Girls. Now, my grandmother, this was her show. My grandmother loved The Golden Girls, but here's the brilliance of it. My daughter, who's 7, who was here, loves The Golden Girls, right? Like, this show has an ability to appeal to people of different ages better than any I've ever seen. And I always liked it. I liked watching it with my grandma. Somehow, it was relatable for me. This is great. Sophia, she's from Italy, like my great grandma was similar to her, and so I related there. And then you got the goofy one from Minnesota who, is wacky, and she just didn't said all these crazy things. And you had the slut, which is great, which I didn't, maybe get it as much as a kid as I have watching it with my daughter, because she watches, I swear to God, she watches this all the time. And I'll sit down and watch. And my daughter's name is Paula. My grandma was Paula. I tell her, "Oh, Grandma Paula loved this show," so I think she likes it because of that. But it was a great show. Like, just looking at this cover, I'm thinking there's no way in hell I would like this, but I did somehow. And I knew other people like me who liked this show.
I liked it.
Yeah, guys liked it. Girls liked it. Like I said, a 7-year-old liked it as much as my 6-year-old grandma liked it at the time. It has some kind of elastic appeal that I can't quite explain. And I almost made it a little high. I almost made it higher. But the next two are kind of untouchable for me, I guess, in the 80s. All right, so number 2, shout out to Hollywood, Florida Dave Rollins. I know this will be number 1 on his list. Growing Pains debuted September 24th, 1985, April 25th, 1992, 166 episodes. And what a show. What a show. So Alan Thicke here, he's a shrink, and his wife wants to go back to work. So he has his practice out of the house, becomes in the house. But the show's not really about that. It's more just about now Dad's in the house. Before he was out and about, now he's in the house. And the main character is Mike Seaver, their son here, who's, kind of a teenage asshole in a way. You know what I mean? He's kind of, cocky. He's kind of a dick, like he's probably one of the popular kids, maybe a little bit of a bully. He's got his friend who's called Boner somehow, which is amazing that was allowed to let fly. His friend Boner, and they say Boner like every chance they get. I think the writer's probably just like, I can't believe, the network is letting us say Boner, without restriction here. He had the brother and the sister who turned out to be a dime, super hot eventually. And she had this like eating disorder, which was perfect for the 80s. I remember she was on the cover of all the magazines, and They were like examining on one of the season finales. They ate pizza, and I remember I was watching like Inside Edition or something, and they zoomed into her mouth to show that she was like just barely chewing the pizza bite that she took. Like the drama of the poor girl's eating disorder for the world to see. Leo got his start on this show. Leonardo DiCaprio becomes a character towards the end. But just, I don't know. I was the right age, I guess. It's freaking hilarious. About a year or two ago, I was on a flight and they had episodes of it, and I watched them to kill the flight, and then I came home and watched the whole show over and still loved it. Rest in peace to Alan Thicke, who passed away, I think, in 2016 or something like that. His son was the singer of that one song, but I think he's canceled. I think.
Definitely.
Is he? Yeah, he's canceled.
Definitely.
He told a hilarious story on Stern, though, about how when Wayne Gretzky got traded to the Kings, him and his wife stayed at Alan's house for a while their house was like getting built. And Robin Thicke looked out his window one day and Janet Jones was playing tennis naked on the tennis court they had back there, which I don't know. I kind of think he dreamed that one out. Like, like really you look out the window and a movie star is playing I think he wanted her to be naked. I don't know. He's canceled anyway. Who cares what he thinks, right? I don't know what he did, but something wrong. I don't even know. But look, he's not in the show anyway. Alan is, who was brilliant. I almost picked him in the Canada draft I had a few weeks ago on the Sportscasters, and I will pick him when we do a second round of Canada drafts. But number one, and the undisputed champion of the decade, I couldn't imagine anything else being number one on the list. Cheers. It debuted September 30th, 1982. 275 episodes, and it went out on top on May 20th, 1993. I remember as a 12-year-old watching like the last 10 episodes and like what a big deal those were. And there's one towards the very end where there's this guy named Paul who's like he's a customer at the bar, but he's not one of the main customers. And he almost looks like a Costanza type. He's this short, bald guy with glasses. And he takes home Carla and sleeps with Carla. And Carla comes in super embarrassed. And Sam Malone takes the guy into the back office to try to get him to like dude up and brag about it to him and not spread it around. And the little fat guy's like, Paul, Paul. Again, at that age, one of the funniest things I've ever seen. During COVID, I watched all 275 episodes of Cheers, and it's great. The cold opens that they would do are great. The only sad thing is that Coach wasn't on the show longer because he's so great on it. The actor who played Coach passed away, I think, at the end of the third season, and that's when Woody comes in, and who was also great and fine, but there was something great about Coach. There's this one cold open where a phone repairman comes into the bar and says he's here to fix the phones. And Coach is like, no, I don't think so. I don't think we called anyone. And the phone guy's like, you sure? And he's like, well, let me call Sam. And he picks up the phone and it's broken. It doesn't work, obviously. And Coach is like, yeah, the phone's out, and the guy's like, well, yeah, that's why you called the repair. I don't know. It's so funny. Obviously, culturally, the impact culturally is huge. Everyone knows who Norm is or, who Cliff Clavin is. Sam Malone, you have Diane here later. It's Kirstie Alley, who passed away, I think, last year, 2 years ago or something like that. Had her run as Sam's love interest. And just for 275 episodes, it was good. It didn't fall off, really. Like I said, I watched them all during COVID and loved it and loved Cheers. It's one of those shows that I'm perpetually watching. I'm always watching Cheers. I always find myself in the world now and again. I'll watch, every night for a week. And, there's shows like Sopranos, The Wire, Deadwood, Cheers, Seinfeld. I'm always watching those shows. I might not do specific rewatches like I did for this or like I've done for Sopranos or what. I might just watch, like right now, I'm just casually watching season 4 of Sopranos because I'm in a Sopranos group chat and someone said they thought it was the weakest. I said, I don't know. I sort of have a remember of liking that. So I'm watching it back to see if I think it's a weakness. Cheers is like that. It'll always be in my life because it's hilarious. Now, I want to address one thing. I didn't include the Cosby Show, but I want to make it clear that this would have been its eligible decade. I just was never a fan of it. I don't know. I definitely watched it as a kid, and it made me laugh now and again, but I've never went back to it. I never thought, and it's not because Cosby turned out to be a creep or anything like that. If I thought the show was great, I would say, hey, it's a great show. Wow, Cosby turned out to be a scumbag. Whatever. I'd just say that. But I just never cared for it. Were you a big Cosby Show guy, Adam?
I definitely watched it, and I thought it was funny.
Yeah, I watched it.
I probably would have put it at like 5. But, yeah. I mean, it's hard to not think about how much of a scumbag Cosby is. But no, you're right. I mean, a lot of these shows were kind of interchangeable in the family shows, the family house, and the goofy antics that happened, and all the lessons at the end of like Full House, and all those shows were like kind of cookie cutter in a way. So some of them, Cheers would be different, but some of them like Family Ties, Growing Pains would be kind of interchangeable in a way.
I think the other thing I want to mention too is that if you were a top show in the 1980s, like Cheers was, or all the shows really on this list, maybe Perfect Strangers never quite rose to the level of the other ones. The impact you had culturally was way bigger than any show could have now.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, these shows were watched by tens of millions of people every week, and you just don't have that anymore. The audience is so fragmented. There's so many more choices. The impact that these shows made culturally, you just couldn't replicate that now. And the 70s as well, when we do 70s and even 90s, you just, to watch a show like Cheers, when I was watching those last 10 episodes, if I wanted to watch them, I had to be there when they aired them. I had to build my night around it. They may replay it in the summer, but that you never kind of knew when those episodes would come up in the summer. There wasn't DVR. You could tape them. That was a different thing, though. It's not as easy as pressing 2 buttons on the DVR like we do now.
Those shows in the 80s, it was almost like like today you would never say this, but it was almost, you were a bigger star if you were a TV star than if you were a movie star. I mean, some of those, like, we still talk about, like, people still know who George Wendt is from this show, and he hasn't really done anything in like 30 years. So.
Yeah, didn't have, and they made millions of dollars on these shows too. By the way, a show like Cheers, which has been perpetually in syndication, since the old formula was, if you can get to 100 episodes, you're basically set for life in a sitcom. If you were one of the people that was getting paid for the sitcom, right? Sometimes the actors and stuff would have a residual that would cut off or whatever. But people like Jerry Seinfeld, like the main people on Cheers, like the people on Friends, the money they made after the show, it just never stopped. But top 5 sitcoms of the 80s, I had Family Ties at 5, Perfect Strangers at 4, Golden Girls at 3, Growing Pains at 2, and Cheers at 1. Adam, forget Cosby Show because we talked about it. Is there one show you feel really needed to be here that wasn't?
I don't know if it needed to replace anything on here, but I was partial to Alf. I loved Alf.
I love Alf too, and that probably would have been 6.
I thought, I mean, it was really just Alf. It wasn't the rest of the characters as much, but I mean, I was a kid and it was like a Muppet kind of, So yeah. I loved Alf. I really did.
Him chasing the cat and try to eat the cat every
and
week.
blowing up the kitchen.
Oh, and one last thing about sitcoms, they needed great songs, none greater than the Growing Pains song, by the way. If you haven't listened to the Growing Pains intro song, it's so good. But don't listen to the acoustic one they did one season. Listen to the regular one. All right. Adam is here to share a list. We're going to do it together. The sports list today, top 5 defensive plays in NFL history. We're going to go back and forth to reveal our number ones. I'm sure we'll comment on each other's plays, but this is a chance to do a list together. Let's see how it goes. I'll start number 5. All right. I was so excited to include this because nobody hates the Falcons more than me. And this is like Deion Sanders took over my body here and was like, all right, you got a chance to humiliate these losers. What are you going to do? And this is what it is. This is 1994. This is the first season Deion leaves Atlanta. So he was with Atlanta, I think, from 87 to 93. When they drafted him in the top 5, he was their player. They never won anything with him, but he was their player for however long. He leaves. He goes to San Francisco. This is in October. He comes back. It's his return game. Andre Rison is the big player on Atlanta at wide receiver, and he's talking all this shit about what he's going to do to Deion, and they fight during the game. I mean, they fight during the game. Probably should have kicked him out, but they don't get kicked out, and he picks off Jeff George. It's a 93-yard pick six. He's high stepping at literally the 40 on the other side of the field. I mean, he showboats this pick like this is like the Jose Batista bat flip of interceptions in the stupid Georgia Dome in front of this stupid people and their stupid owner and this stupid team. He pissed all over their end zone in the first game back, and I love Deion like a hero from then on out. That's my number 5, Deion's famous pick six at the Georgia Dome. What do you got, Adam?
Well, I'll go with another cornerback, Daryl Green tackling Tony Dorsett. Now, this wasn't like a game-changing, playoff victory kind of moment. But if you watch the whole play, if you go on YouTube, I'm sure you can find it, from where Daryl Green chased down Tony Dorsett from the opposite side of the field. Tony Dorsett was like the fastest running back in the NFL. I think this is 1983. Yeah. Daryl Green was a rookie, I think, too, out of nowhere, a tiny school in Texas, and chases down the best running back, the fastest running back in the NFL from like 60 yards away. And I remember it was a play a couple years ago where I think it was a DK Metcalf who chased somebody down and everybody was going crazy on Twitter.
Malcolm Jenkins did it too. Malcolm Jenkins on Thanksgiving against the Cowboys. I thought about that play. Yeah.
This was the original.
The original.
And Daryl Green, fastest man in the NFL. They had those competitions in the 90s. This was like the play that got him noticed. And it's amazing for that would never happen in today's NFL for a corner on the opposite side of the field to chase down a running back. Those other plays were interceptions, which are a little different. That I remember, and I wrote one of my books was on the Redskins and this era of the Redskins, and I remember the awe that people had of that play, and that was like his arrival moment. And some people, you mentioned Deion earlier. There is you could make a case that Daryl Green was the best cornerback in the history of the NFL, especially how small he was, and how long he played at an insanely high level. So this was his rookie year. Truly amazing play, just amazing athletic play.
And like you said, he came out of nowhere. Not like Deion, who comes from Florida State, top 5 pick in the draft, right? This guy was a gem they found, and he establishes himself here as the fastest man in the NFL, and he holds it for like a decade,
Yeah.
Yep. All right, good one. My number 4, Lawrence Taylor turns Joe Theismann's leg into a wet noodle on Monday Night Football. I have a story about this play. So my mom was working this night, and I was staying at my Nona's house, my Nona Paula's house, and we were somewhere. We were kind of out for the night. And we came home, and in my grandma's bedroom, she had a 13-inch TV with the rabbit ears. It wasn't color, black and white, 13-inch TV. And Monday Night Football back then started at 9 o'clock. So as a kid, I didn't get to see a lot of Monday Night Football because it started so late. And I remember when the Saints would play, which was not very often, I would have to come home from school and take a nap to earn the first half. But for whatever reason, on this night, I was at my Nona's house, and she was getting ready for bed. I think she showered or whatever. And I took the opportunity to lay in bed and put Monday Night Football on. And I swear to God, she walks out of the bathroom like right now. And they just show it over and over. And she's like, oh, my God, what are you watching, Steven? What is this? Oh, it's so vile. No. And we had to turn it off. But, I mean, a historic moment. Wrecked Joe Theismann's career. I don't think he ever played again. You could see his leg. It's not supposed to go like that. And I'll never forget Lawrence Taylor holding his head like this. And then waving the person off. But my grandma, not a fan of this. But I put it on because of the memory and the impact it had on the game. I mean, Lawrence Taylor someone the Saints decided to pick George Rogers instead of. Beast. Poor Joe Theismann. Guy's still probably limping. You talked to Joe Theismann about this when he wrote the Redskins book?
Yes, I did interview him about for the book, Redskins book. I feel like I talked to him about it. Part of me though feels like I didn't want to bring it up with him. I can't remember. Right. It was a while ago, but yeah,
remember when your brain got split into 30 pieces? Joe?
Yeah, exactly. I may have asked him about, now that I'm thinking about it, I think the ambulance driver, because they took him straight to the hospital right away. I think the ambulance driver later got in trouble because he stole his jersey off of him. Yeah. I think that's in the book. I may have asked him about that.
That rings a bell from reading that book. I remember that. All right, what's your number 4?
2013 NFC Championship game. I think the 49ers were up 6 points, and they had the ball. The Seahawks were up 6. The 49ers were down 6. Kaepernick was the quarterback. I think they had the ball at like the 40 or the 30-yard line. There was like 40 seconds left. And Crabtree and Richard Sherman had been jawing all day. And so like that's what I remembered about this that's why I remembered it. A touchdown wins the game. They had a 6-point lead. It wasn't like it was going to go to overtime. So if Crabtree catches that ball, 49ers are going to the Super Bowl. And if, Sherman broke it up, he made a tremendous, you can see the picture there, but I think he kind of had to turn around, do like a 180-degree turn to actually get his hand up.
He looked beat. Like when the ball's in the air, it looks like it's going to be caught by Crabtree.
So I think, that play put them in the Super Bowl, which they won. If it's a 2013 Super Bowl, So that was the year they beat up the Broncos. That play put them in the Super Bowl because if he's not there, Crabtree catches that and it's a touchdown and the Seahawks lose. So that's why it's a great physical play, but the impact of the outcome. And then I think he got in a lot of trouble afterwards for like an R-rated interview. But I won't factor that in.
Iconic interview with Aaron Andrews after he's basically called Crabtree a pussy, basically.
Yeah.
All right. Good one. I thought about that one too. All right. Number 3. Look at who would I be if I didn't take a chance to shit on the Falcons at least twice, right? So my number 3 play, let's give a shout out to Hightower for his strip sack here in the Super Bowl. Now, I can't remember the exact score, but I remember at one point in this game, the Falcons were ahead. I don't remember. I think it was, I don't remember. It was a lot. They were ahead by a lot. I don't remember the exact score, 28-3, something like that. They were ahead.
It was 28-3, yeah.
Oh, was it 28-3? Okay, thank you. Oh, okay. Actually, now that you say that, I remember pitching in for the billboard that me and the Saints fans bought near the new stadium when they opened it. That simply said 28-3. And then Arthur whatever used his political might to get it canceled on us, and my money got returned. But
I think also didn't the Patriots rings have 283 diamonds in them?
Yes, they did.
I think that was the thing I remembered about it. Yeah.
But this was the defensive play that sort of they were going to need one of these based on the time left they had. They were going to need a short field. They're going to need to change it to steal possession if they were going to come back from 28-3. And this is the play. Hightower comes around the edge, and Matt Ryan, the loser that he is, stands back there like a statue, gets the ball knocked away, and the rest is history. Of course, in overtime, I always wished it was a more dramatic play than it was in overtime to win it. It was like a little James White run to the right, and he kind of like chugging his feet. I remember poor Joe Buck's like kind of waiting for the signal, like, did he get in or not? And I always wish it was something a little bit better. Maybe like a little, like the play that Breeze broke the Dan Marino's record on, where Sproles kind of comes into it gets open, and then, I don't know, something like that would have been cooler. Whatever. I don't really care what it was. All I know is those losers blew a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl. And thanks to Mr. Hightower for the key moment where he steals a possession for Brady and the Pats. And that's the moment right there, number 3. What do you got?
I'm gonna plug another one of my books.
Yes.
Montana and the 49ers first Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's my favorite.
But the 81 NFC Championship game, the catch. Montana makes the catch, or Dwight Clark makes the catch. That's not the end of the game. There's still like a minute left, I think, maybe 55 seconds. And I don't know how this, like, the Cowboys had Danny White, who's a pretty good quarterback. They got the ball in like the 20, and he threw a pass over the middle to Drew Pearson, great receiver Drew Pearson, who caught the ball wide open, like right at midfield. And he's going for an 80-yard touchdown. And Eric Wright, it would be illegal today, would have a horse collar today. But he grabs him by the tip of his fingers, pulls him down at the 50 or maybe the 45. And again, they were nursing a 1-point lead. It was 28-27, I think. So even a field goal loses the game for them. So if Eric Wright doesn't make that tackle, there's no, I mean, maybe the 49ers go to the Super Bowl the next year and the next year, but the start of the dynasty and the famous Dwight Clark catch is completely moot. So that play, which people forget, is just a truly forgotten and should be iconic moment, as important as the catch.
That's a great one. Yeah, that's a great. I don't even know if I knew about that, to be honest. I'm sure I read it in the book.
YouTube has it. I mean, you can see it's the series right after the catch, and he's going for an 80-yard touchdown in open field. There's no one there, and Eric Wright, you can see in the picture, just barely grabs his jersey, yanks him down at like the 50, and they don't score. I don't remember what happened after that, but they did not even kick a field goal, or they would have won the game. So that play obviously cemented the beginning of their dynasty.
Man, no team is more blessed than the 49ers in the playoffs, man. Wow. Imagine trying to make a top 10 49ers playoff plays list. I mean, they
have 3 famous plays called the catch. So
right. Yeah, the Saints lost the catch 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ridiculous. Owens, Dwight here, and then Vernon Davis is the catch 3. Mm-hmm. All right, my number 2, I just couldn't see leaving this one off. And I don't have any vitriol for the Seahawks like I do the Falcons, but Malcolm Butler makes an all-time play in the end zone here. I remember watching this game thinking, why isn't he calling a timeout? Belichick. Like, I just thought, you have a timeout. Call a timeout, because they're going to run a 1-yard touchdown on the next play to Marshawn Lynch here. Like, I was saying that out loud, like, to my wife, like, they need to call a timeout because Lynch is going to run it in on the next play. Give Brady as much time as you can. Instead, he let it go, and it created enough chaos, whatever. If you watch, I don't know what NFL film show it is, but they show Butler getting burned in practice on this play. And the coach of the Patriots coaches him up on it. This is one of those cross plays at the goal line that the Saints have gotten beat every time it's ever been run on them in the last 20 years. And Butler got burned in practice that week, and they specifically stopped the practice and coached up the responsibilities, and he didn't get beat this time. He beat the receiver to the ball, really.
Yeah.
And absolutely, he won a Super Bowl here. I mean, he won a Super Bowl with his interception at the goal line. Right here.
I don't know if that's like, I don't know how much blame goes to Russell Wilson. I don't know how much blame goes to Pete Carroll. I don't know how much blame goes to, I can't remember the coordinator's name, but he's Darrell Bevell, maybe.
Yeah, Bevell. Yeah.
Whoever, I don't. Somewhere they're all responsible, but it's got to be up there with the more bonehead decisions in NFL history, because just run the ball, right? I mean, I don't know how much time was left.
Less than a minute, I think. And
but there was enough time to run more than one play.
Oh, yeah, plenty of time. I know the analytics people would say Marshawn Lynch somehow didn't have a good season in and 1 rushes, but like, I find it hard to think that in that moment Marshawn Lynch isn't getting in there. I would want to see him stop him. You know, I'd want to see him stop him.
Yeah,
but they went this way, and Malcolm Butler, give him credit, getting burned all week on this play, got coached up, speaks to their culture, I think, in this time, the preparation that goes into winning this. And I'll talk about that more with my number 1. But Malcolm Butler, an all-time play. And if it wasn't for my personal connection to number 1, this probably would have been my number 1. What do you got for 2, Adam?
Well, I got a personal connection, but in a negative way. 1994, an AFC Championship game. Steelers, huge favorites against San Diego Chargers. everybody had inked in 49ers Steelers Super Bowl. First one, the winner was going to get 5 rings for the first time. I was in the nascent years of my Steeler fandom here, and I remember watching this game. They should have blown out the Chargers, who had Stan Humphries quarterback, and not much else. They had Natron Means, who was pretty good, but not much else. Did not have great receivers, and the Steelers played like absolute garbage the entire game. Only put up 13 points, and then at the end of the game, their lackluster offense pushed it down to the 3-yard line with about 40 seconds left, and 4th and 3. Neil O'Donnell, who was my hero at the time, just I adored Neil O'Donnell, drops back to pass, unloads a pass. Barry Foster, right in the middle of the field, right in the end zone, is open and throws it to him. And Dennis Gibson, who was just a regular nobody linebacker, made a great play, got his hand in there, swiped it away, and that was the end of the game. And the Chargers, it was one of the bigger upsets in playoff history. Of course, the Chargers got destroyed in the Super Bowl by the 49ers. But that was and I will say that as much as that loss kind of like, I was like I said, I was an early Steelers fan. I wasn't a diehard Steelers fan that year because I was only 11 or 12 years old. That loss made me really love the Steelers. I remember that was like the beginning of my real diehard Steeler era days. And my dad was depressed. We were maybe going to go to the Super Bowl. Who knows? And that was heartbreaking, especially since it was a game they absolutely should have won. And then the next year, they're in the same position. They had a 4th and 3 with like 2 or 3 minutes left. They were down by 3, maybe 4, and they had another 4th and 3, and O'Donnell completed a pass to Ernie Mills, I think. And they ended up winning that game, going to the Super Bowl. So I remember it being like poetic justice. They had back-to-back 4th and 3s at the end of the 4th quarter of AFC Championship games. And this was the one, though, that such a great defensive play to get in there, recognize the ball was coming, and swipe it away.
And by the way, the following year, the last play of the game, Jim Harbaugh missed completing a game-winning touchdown.
Yeah,
by about that much.
Well, he was definitely he had it, but the guy sort of rolled over and it fell out.
Yeah. They missed it by that much. All right, my number one. It had to be my number one. It's on the wall behind me. Tracy Porter picks off Peyton Manning to win the Super Bowl for the Saints, Super Bowl 44. You see Peyton Manning on his butt there, courtesy of the late great Will Smith, who knocked him down. I had surgery in early January, I think the week before the first playoff game. And my brother Greg, sort of during the playoff run, my mom sort of stationed him next to me to make sure that I didn't overdo it and rip out my stitches or whatever. And he did a great job through the blew out Arizona. Reggie Bush had his best game as a pro. And then they have an epic NFC Championship game against Minnesota, who sort of gifted us that game with 6 turnovers, including Brett Favre throwing a pick to Tracy Porter to end regulation. And I did pretty good until this moment. There's nothing like seeing your team win the Super Bowl on a pick 6 against a Hall of Fame player like Peyton Manning too. And again, this is all coaching. This was all preparation. Tracy Porter recognized the play. He knew where Peyton Manning was going to the ball, and he got there before Reggie Wayne even came out of his break. And there's a moment in that NFL Films captures where Peyton Manning goes up to Reggie Wayne and says something to him. And I always love to know what he said because Phil Simms says the timing wasn't there. The timing wasn't there because Tracy Porter knew the play and just jumped it. And Reggie Wayne never had a chance. Tracy Porter was 3 yards down the field with the ball before Reggie Wayne even got out of his break and looked up. And the feeling to know, I fell in love with the Saints when they lost to the Vikings in the 1987 season, January of 88. They lost 48-10 or whatever to the Vikings. And they had started off the game with a strip sack, Pat Swilling had a strip sack, and then Bobby Hebert threw a touchdown to Eric Martin, and the dome was just going nuts. And, Jim Moore looked like my grandfather, this little Italian guy with gray hair as the coach. and the dome is awesome, and they got sick jerseys, and the place is just going batshit. Like they just got the hot tag, and that's someone's a house of fire in there. And I just watched the rest of the day, just everything go wrong, and just thought, how could that have happened to them? And they were my team from that day forward. And, in 2006, they got to the NFC Championship game and lost. But before Breeze and Peyton arrived, they had won one playoff game ever. One in 2000. Akeem drops the ball against the Rams. That was the only playoff game they had ever won in the entire – November 1st, 1967, the NFL awarded the franchise on All Saints Day. And at the year 2006, when Sean Payton was hired and Drew Brees was signed, they had one playoff win. And 2006 changed everything. Then they had a couple just not so great years where they were 7-9, 8-8. 2007, Deuce McAllister tore his ACL early against the Titans. And the most exciting thing about 2008 was Drew Brees got like within 6 yards of Dan Marino's record and didn't break it, but they didn't have anything. And in 2009, everything came together. Greg Williams had a good plan with the defense. They didn't stop many, but they turned the ball over all the time. They scored points and they won because of it in the end. And Tracy Porter, the only player on the team from Louisiana, has the catch in the moment. And if you are a longtime fan of a team, I dream for you that your team can win the Super Bowl this way, because there's no better way than that. What do you got? What's your number one?
I'm going to preface this by saying something. I wasn't sure if you would pick Mike Jones tackling, I can't remember, was it Kevin Dyson?
It was Dyson,
Super Bowl 34 at the end of one of my favorite. On my list. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were going to pick it, so I didn't pick it. Honestly, my favorite non-Steelers Super Bowl is that Super Bowl with Rams and the Titans. I thought that was just a boring game for 3 quarters, and the fourth quarter was just electric. So I didn't pick it because I thought you might pick it. I also didn't pick James Harrison's touchdown against the Cardinals. I thought you were expecting me to, and I'll tell you why.
That one for you.
I didn't pick it because it's less a great defensive play and more an incredible return.
It is a great return.
So that's why
I was on that play. I won the squares at halftime.
I was at that game, and the thing about that is, if you remember that play well enough, there's a flag on that play that is thrown very, very early. And I think it ended up being like an illegal block or something by the Cardinals. And I watched that whole play unfold thinking, this is coming back. It's pass interference or it's whatever. It's coming back. And I was not excited at all. Like I was like, whatever, it's just coming back. I don't know why they're bothering. And it ended up being on the Cardinals. So it counted. Obviously one of the most important plays in Super Bowl history. But I did not choose that either. Instead, I chose a play that happened a couple years earlier for the Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger tackling Nick Harper at the end of the Colts-Steelers playoff game. The Steelers were huge underdogs. The Colts were, I think, like 15-1. They went into the RCA Dome. I was at that game as well. They were in the RCA Dome. They were up the whole game. The Colts sort of started coming back at the end. And then there was that fumble by Jerome Bettis on the goal line when the game should have been over. And Ben Roethlisberger did all these 360s trying to stop Nick Harper from picking up Jerome Bettis' fumble and returning it for the game-winning touchdown. And he somehow shoestring tackled him. I think I remember hearing the next day that Nick Harper and his wife had gotten into some kind of domestic altercation and had cut his leg or something. He had a cut in his leg from that the night before the game, and they were all speculating. Steelers fans were all speculating that that's why Roethlisberger was able to tackle him, because he wasn't at 100%. And obviously, it's not a defensive player, but it is a defensive play. Just unbelievable good fortune that Ben Roethlisberger had the presence of mind to stay with the play and not go off and do whatever he could have done, but also that he got down to the ground and got the guy's leg, and that ended up setting up Mike Vanderjagt for what would have been the game-tying field goal, which he blew 20 yards to the right, I think.
Our idiot kicker. Yeah.
Idiot kicker. Exactly. Yeah. So that was just – I was being at that game with my dad, and the swing of emotions from them being up the whole game to having it sealed, and all they have to do is basically take a knee, and Bettis fumbling and then not being. I mean, it looked like it was a touchdown. It looked like obviously it was a touchdown.
It was gone. Yeah.
Yeah. And Roethlisberger stopping it. And it was just more than I think any play that year, which was just a magical year for the Steelers. That was the play that summed everything up.
And I remember watching on TV and just thinking he's got the whole field. Just don't run into Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah. Yeah. He did. He could have outran Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah. Just get away from him. He's the only guy anywhere near. And if not for this play, no one would know where Jerome Bettis is from.
That's true. I mean?
Yeah. Luckily, this play was made, and for the next month, we would forever know that Jerome Bettis is from Detroit.
There were 2 weeks of hearing about Jerome Bettis being from Detroit. That's absolutely right.
All right, my number 5, Deion Sanders embarrasses the Falcons in his return. Lawrence Taylor turns Joe Theisen's leg into a noodle. Hightower strip sack against Matt Ryan. Malcolm Butler picks off Russell Wilson at the goal line, and Tracy Porter's pick 6. You want to run yours down real quick?
Daryl Green chasing down Tony Dorsett in 1983. Richard Sherman breaking up the game-winning pass to Michael Crabtree in the 2013 NFC Championship game. Eric Wright tackling Drew Pearson at the end of the 1981 NFC Championship game. Dennis Gibson breaking up Neil O'Donnell's pass to Barry Foster at the end of the 1994 AFC Championship game. And then Ben Roethlisberger making me very happy for at least a little bit of time in the 2005 and AFC divisional playoff against the Colts.
The book is called The Wingmen, The Unlikely, Unusual, Unbreakable Friendship between John Glenn and Ted Williams. The author is my friend Adam Lazarus, and it's available now as you watch this. Go buy it. It's a great read. It's about, above all, it's about friendship, and everyone can relate to that. You don't have to like baseball or astronauts or anything more. It's a story about friendship, and it's about a friendship that endures despite being strained at times, distance, not the kind of friendship where you text every day or call every day or whatever. Different kind of friendship that Adam documents in the book here. So check it out. Adam, thanks for being the Jeff Passan of 3x5, the first guest ever. Like Jeff Passan was the first guest on the Sportscasters. I wish you nothing but 1 million followers on ESPN 10 years from now. Thanks to everyone for watching 3x5. We are out.